seat, please. Okay, so good morning, everyone. This is a massive room and very bright lights shining right in our faces. Would it be possible for people to not sit at the edges and maybe come into the middle a little bit so we can all, it can feel a bit more like a conversation? That would be wonderful if you could all gather around the center a little bit. Thank you very much. So, welcome. This is day 2 of the summit. It's incredible that this is already spotlight number 8. I don't know where the other 7 went, but and it's obviously a beautiful snowy morning here in Geneva, so you're all very welcome in the warm room of Geneva here. This Spotlight Session 8 is entitled Fostering Collective Efforts for Sustainable Development Impact, focusing on joint results as a lever for global recovery. My name is Rahul Malhotra. I am a head of division at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and I'm delighted to be able to co-host this session together with Sierra Leone, Malawi, the European Union, and CordAid. And let me introduce the wonderful panelists that we have here this morning. So, firstly, we have His Excellency Jonathan Titus Williams, Deputy Minister of Planning and Economic Development from Sierra Leone. Thank you very much for joining us. We will also, I hope, technology permitting, be joined by the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Minister Gwengwe from Malawi, online at some point during the session. Delighted to be joined also by Marietta Jaeger, the Deputy Director General for International Partnerships, DG INTPA, European Commission. Thank you for joining us. And last but not least, Isabella Toth, who's the Director Institutional Fundraising and Donor Relations from CordAid. Thank you for joining us, Isabella. Great, so that's the panelists. Let me say a few words by way of scene setting, and we'll also have a short video. But the one thing I wanted to do was actually just reflect a little bit on yesterday and what I heard. And there were 4 words or phrases that I heard repeatedly yesterday. One was, the first is around trust, and the trust between partners in this endeavor of development and achieving development results. The second was this perennial challenge of short-term versus long-term, and particularly in the context of crisis and the sense of competing, cascading pressures on very scarce resources. How do we maintain our focus on long-term results? The third is around fragmentation, where we see this trend towards projectization and not necessarily transitioning to scale in all our endeavors. And fourth, and finally, we heard a lot about localization, making sure that the scarce concessional resource in particular reaches country level, and when it reaches country level, is locally led. Now, in all those 4 sort of themes, I do think that the results agenda, and we heard references to that one of the 4 effectiveness principles being results focused. I do think this is where the rubber really hits the road. And it's not a technical issue. It's not just about measuring and monitoring. It's also not a generic issue. It's not just achieving results generically for the sake of it. It's actually a way of working. And it's really about how we collaborate, how we root and anchor our ways of working together and our collaborations and our partnerships, which is why I think we really need to delve into this agenda a lot deeper than we have to date. And to help us do that, we are going to start with a very quick video, which is basically showcasing some key messages from work that we've conducted in the guise of the OECD DAC results community with the very generous support of the European Union. We've conducted a series of research and analyses and dialogues across 10 country contexts, across all regions. And I just want to be able to show you some of the key messages emerging from that work before we launch into a panel discussion. So if we could show the video, please.
7 years ago, the world came together to set an ambitious agenda for sustainable development. But transitioning from our old ways of partnering in development process to adopting an SDG lens that can truly advance sustainable development has proven to be a hard transition, both for development agencies and partner country governments. And the pandemic and the succession of crises that have followed all but disrupted planned efforts. As we pass the halfway point for the implementation of this urgent agenda, it is clear that progress towards most SDGs remains off track. And development actors have not been fast enough in converging around a shared agenda for sustainable development results. It is urgent to complete this transition, join forces and act in unison. The global challenges confronting us all will not be resolved without better, stronger, more effective global and country-level cooperation. Let's look back at COVID-19. It provided a moment of reckoning. Far more than a health crisis, the pandemic had far-reaching impacts on all aspects of life for all people in all countries. It also highlighted the interdependence of countries and development goals and the need for coherent, collective action across economic, social, and environmental efforts. This is precisely what the 2030 Agenda invited us to do back in 2015. The SDGs were more than an elusive ambition. They provided development actors with a common roadmap to navigate the complexity of development challenges ahead of us and to ensure that development cooperation is effective. For that reason, we should identify and overcome the obstacles in adopting a shared results agenda. So, ahead of this summit, and in partnership with the EU and 10 countries in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Pacific, the OECD carried out in-depth diagnostics and country dialogues to identify roadblocks and lessons and explore remedies and opportunities. And while there is no single silver bullet to propel development progress, integration of sustainable development goals into development policies, programs, and projects offers concrete benefits that can accelerate the achievement of sustainable development results. 1. The SDGs provide an example of a shared results agenda with strong consensus behind. They can act as an anchor to better align all efforts behind partner countries' development priorities, a key principle of effective development cooperation. 2. Using the SDGs helps improve the coordination and coherence of development efforts, maximizes synergies, and reduces the current level of duplication and fragmentation and data gaps in development cooperation. It is not just cost-effective, it maximizes the development impact of every investment. 3. Data quality and use are enhanced when all stakeholders work together towards common SDG results. In our country research, we found that using standard SDG indicators helps reduce the proliferation of thousands of different indicators to measure similar issues. And 4. Using the SDGs to define objectives and targets promotes the alignment of finance to sustainable development objectives. This is key to ensuring that increasingly diverse sources of development finance are all used as effectively as possible for maximum development impact. However, just below a third of development cooperation providers can report on their overall SDG results, and partner countries face similar difficulties, with data gaps and short-term disruptions affecting their long-term development plans and SDG ambitions. OECD research shows that multiple technical, organizational, and political obstacles stand in the way. In 2022, we started to move the needle to address these issues through inclusive processes led by the governments of Malawi, Sierra Leone, and Tanzania, who partnered with the European Union, the OECD, and many other development actors to identify issues and solutions. Through inclusive dialogues, all actors proposed and agreed on the 3 sets of actions. First, participants reaffirmed that promoting a results agenda in support of sustainable development is not a technical exercise, but a prime consequence of political leadership. Therefore, leaders agreed to set and invest in clear development priorities, strategies, and results frameworks for the country, localizing the SDGs to their own context and being realistic, coherent, and inclusive on how to meet these goals. Second, in return, development partners explored actions to better localize their support and increase their alignment to a common agenda for sustainable development, which should respect local ownership and relevance. They also committed to helping countries improve their development plans, policies and frameworks, and to better align plans and budgets and harmonize the ways they monitor results. And finally, no country or development partner will overcome the challenges to sustainable development alone. All partners proposed actions to modernize and strengthen existing coordination mechanisms, data sharing platforms, policy dialogue, and processes to hold each other accountable, all oriented towards a common results agenda. With a combination of incremental actions jointly defined in each country, governments, development agencies, NGOs and the private sector hope to overcome existing hurdles that prevent them from effective cooperation and increase their collective impact towards sustainable development. And, to that end, effective results frameworks at country level have proven to play a crucial role in facilitating a clear, shared agenda to anchor all actions to common goals.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I really hope that the panel discussion now can really zoom in on some of the key messages that we've heard from that video. We're going to have 2 rounds of questions. I'm going to be quite firm on the 3-minute responses because we don't have very much time. And I would, if at all possible, leave some room at the end for some conversation, questions and answers from the floor. And we're joined by many people online as well, and I do hope that the Minister of Finance will be able to join us from Malawi. And yes, if I can encourage you all to focus in on some of what we heard around the political drivers, some of the bottlenecks, and also some of the opportunities, so we can have a really forward-looking conversation as well. Good. Okay, so the first question is to you, Deputy Minister Titus Williams. So as we heard, Sierra Leone was part of one of these inclusive exercises, dialogues mentioned in the video. From your perspective, what are the obstacles that prevent stronger collaboration for joint results in Sierra Leone, and what actions have you agreed to try to overcome some of those challenges?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, fellow participants, panelists, distinguished participants. Improving coordination of all development partners around a shared agenda for results has been a long-standing priority for Sierra Leone because it helps to strengthen country ownership and reduces transaction costs and inefficiencies. Therefore, the inclusive dialogue we had in Freetown in the first quarter of 2022 helped in identifying not only the obstacles, but also profiled potential solutions to addressing these hurdles, which impacts on the joint work of government entities and development partners. 3 of these challenges were really identified. One is alignment. The multi-stakeholder dialogue reflects the need to better align our ambitions, plans, and strategies with available resources and budgets. For that goal, anchoring budgets to a shared results agenda will allow us to pool resources more efficiently and increase our collective impact. The second is coordination. The need for all stakeholders to play a role in streamlining, simplifying, and updating our multiple coordination mechanisms. We all engage in multiple mechanisms at sector level, but we need to improve in terms of collective coherence and coordination. We also need less small projects and more pool funds that really lead to transformative impact in Sierra Leone. Finally, is data. There was a general call to support more efficient or joint monitoring of development results in the country and data collection in general. There is a significant amount of development data in the country, but we can become more efficient and make better use of that data if we break the silos and integrate all those data collection processes. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. Let me turn to you, Marietta. So as we heard from the video, the EU has really been a driving force behind sort of really shining a light on exposing some of these bottlenecks and opportunities at country level, for which we're very grateful. But maybe you could tell us a little bit about why you consider that country-owned effective results frameworks are important as a lever for better collaboration and joint results. Marietta.
Yes, good morning, dear colleagues. Thank you very much for the recognition that the European Union has been active in this field for quite some time. And I can tell you that we in EU believe really that effective result framework can be a strategic tool for all development actors. Basically, we all need to take data-based and informed decision to make not only the stock of what we've been doing, but also to decide what it works the best and what we are going to do in the future. So effective result framework is essential really to ensure the mutual accountability for more development. And indeed, as you mentioned, the Commission heavily invested in having a quality data on result, not only in our annual reports at all levels, meaning the program, country, global level, but we also invested, and we've been very committed, long-term committed, you know, to basically get the country-based results framework. As we have seen from the video, you know, we have supported the inclusive dialogues in Malawi, Sierra Leone, and Tanzania. And also, we've been absolutely delighted to collaborate with you on many programs, the latest one on achieving the country level result framework to guide SDG achievements. And I hope that our generous contribution will really bring good results. But we believe that we need to work with all international partners. First of all, we also support data for decision on IMF. We do the change program with the World Bank, and we invest heavily in Pan-Africa statistics. What I would like to say is, of course, we need ownership at the country level, but we also need the capacity at the country level to collect data and to get the data in order, you know, to have a joint understanding of the way forward. So we believe to use the country result framework drawn from the country national development plans to measure the impact and the links with the SDG. And we hope that our program help identifying critical needs for the government to take the government ownership and consultation and data collection with the support to statistical institutions. This is my last point, so I know I am close to 3 minutes, because we believe that the country level, we need to invest in this capacity to collect data. And we also need the country-owned results framework providers to use more data collected at the country level, because it has been proven that that was limited. So my last message is we all need to work together to gather the data at the country level, and you can count on European Union for continuous support in that field. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marietta. And I think data is already a red thread in our conversation. And just to say that there is obviously a dedicated session on data for development shortly after this session. So let me turn to you, Isabella. You are from CordAid and very active in the sort of CSO arm of the global partnership, but also in our own OECD DAC results community, for which we are also extremely grateful. And so, Isabella, from a civil society perspective, can you say a little bit about what you think the key characteristics are that contribute to the development of effective results frameworks at country level? Isabella. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be in this panel, and good morning, everybody. Yes, I heard when I was watching at the little movie, I thought, oh, we are kind of done. So if we go through it point by point and we try to explicit
the answer to the question we are looking at for a couple of days now, transforming the way we work together, then we would get somehow a step further. So basically, to the question, joint result frameworks of whom? Whose results? And also, who are all of us are accountable to whom in the value chain of this? So this has also an impact on realization of joint result frameworks and implementation thereof. So ideally, one calibrates a contribution being aware of the circle of concern and circle of influence and the sphere of operation. So we, as an internationally operating Global North NGO, our main task is to work towards more and qualitatively better localization, including local ownership of development dividends. This means that whatever we do, we apply as much as possible inclusive development approach with development partners in the specific country, as the result and outcomes of any intervention must be fitting their longer-term plans that are ideally aligned with higher aggregation level of results from community to district to national level. And there is one of the issues about the aggregation, the quality of the data that is collected and the capacity to do that. This is why, for instance, system strengthening interventions that we support, health, education, and market system development, are aligned with local government results framework that are responding to SDG indicators. So we strive from our humble position as an international NGO to create local ownership, inclusive development of results framework based on local partners organization strategy, creation of indicators that need to be linked to the SDGs or similar locally relevant concrete results. But we also need to respond to the results framework of our funders. For instance, our security and justice programs report to the Dutch MFA indicator basket that are subsequently aligned with several SDG indicators. And basically, what we try to bring this all together by during review and monitoring. In the meantime, during implementation, we bring together the opinion, the weighing by of the results of the achievements by the partners that are active on the intervention with what the donor wants. But at the end of the day, you know, we can all do this on the SDGs that are what I mentioned on health, education, market system development. The bigger issues that we have as a civil society organization is that many of the more sensitive SDGs, number 5 or number 16, you remember that it was kind of voluntary to adopt the SDGs at country level. So by far, not every country adopted them. And it's very complicated to achieve, to monitor results on them. So let me, for the first round, end here. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Isabel. Again, common themes around alignment and localization. Let me turn back to you, Marietta, now. So can you sort of say a little bit more about, so we've heard about these challenges to development effectiveness yesterday and also again this morning that GPDC is really trying to zoom in on and unpack and solve to some extent. Can you say a bit more again about what is for you is the centrality of results to this agenda, and what's your sort of, from an EU perspective, what's the vision?
Yes, as I said before, we strongly believe in the data and evidence-based decision-making. And of course, what we have learned from pandemic is that we need to be very fast and very flexible in order to basically address all the needs. We are going in these challenging times from one crisis to another. And the pandemic has provided a strong incentive to advance in terms of not only alignment to improve our common actions toward the key global challenges, but also to achievements of the SDGs, to get the SDGs back on track. So what we tried to do in order to minimize the impact of COVID at that time is that we basically pulled together the resources we had in the European Commission, but also with the member states and with the European financial institutions to build so-called Team Europe approach and basically collectively put the response on the table. And in a very short time, we managed to reprogram or redefine the aid in more than 47 billions. And that basically brought us to the understanding that we need to work better at the European level. So that's why you will hear a lot about the Global Gateway Strategy and Team Europe initiatives that we are doing together with our member states. But also, you know, we are trying to do the scaling up resources for the development programs, but also to work on the common monitoring, reporting, and evaluation framework. So you will hear us talking more about more, which means monitoring, reporting, and evaluation framework. And this framework will help us basically to jointly monitor and report on our experience, also results and lessons learned, but also will define the process, the tool, and the standards for monitoring by partners, for aggregated reporting and public information on specific initiatives, and also a lot about evaluation and learning, because we believe that that needs to be done together, of course, first at the European level, but also it is understood that national partners from the government, civil society, and private sector partners will play really important partners in this policy dialogue, because we would like to have stories of change, lessons learned, to basically, together with our partners, present the results, and not only because we are responsible and accountable to our EU taxpayers, but also because we are accountable and we need to be transparent towards civil society and toward our partner countries. And of course, in line with the OECD DAC guideline principles, the objective is to enable TEI members to set the coherent and integrated joint intervention. So logic in individually tailored monitoring and evaluation arrangements for each TEI, and that, of course, this more framework will enable us to basically report on the EU contribution on the development progress, and it will also feed into the SDG results. So the key feature of this approach is, and let me finish with that, that it's country-based. Again, in other words, this is considered not as a new layer. So, Mr. Minister, Deputy Minister, not to be scared, it's not another layer, but it's a way to strengthen the process already at work at the country level. So that means that we will continue with our technical assistance in collecting data, statistical offices, and continue to work on a agreed set of indicators and both monitoring and evaluation. Thank you very much. Sorry for being too long.
No, not at all. Thank you very much. And speaking of layers and coordination and other issues related to how development partners behave in a particular context, maybe Deputy Minister Titus Williams, I could ask you if you've identified any elements of support, or perhaps even more pointedly, elements of behavior change that would help you to coordinate and achieve better results in Sierra Leone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. You know, in the current context, the government sees a need for better quality support from the development partner community. If we are going to deliver together for the Sierra Leonean people and to preserve the natural wealth of the country, there are a number of actions to pursue following the country dialogue. First, we are working on improving on our development cooperation architecture and governance through reviewing our development cooperation framework documents to make it fit for purpose and effectively mobilize and coordinate our international and domestic development partners. We wish in turn for a proactive engagement of development partners in those processes. We need partners that actively coordinate with each other, with the center of government entities like my ministry, the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development. Second, we need our partners to join us in streamlining development, coordination, and mechanisms to avoid duplication, fragmentation, and lack of whole of government coherence. Third, we need to support an active engagement in setting up and using a data platform that brings together all the development data that is now collected in various parallel monitoring systems. Finally, as we have a good development plan in the country, but there's always room to strengthen it, which we hope to do in the succession plan to our current medium-term national development plan, whose implementation ends in 2023. We would like development partner support to join forces in developing a common set of indicators to measure results that are relevant to Sierra Leone and that every partner commits jointly pursue. For example, my ministry is currently working in collaboration with the UN UN Country Coordinator's Office to monitor the SDGs platform in our country. So that engagement is currently ongoing. There are other important demands as well in terms of better and predictable financing that can help the country realistically implement its development plan and to sort out the short-term demands of the current macroeconomic context. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Titus Williams. Let me turn to you, Isabella. So same question, really, from your own perspective around where you see the sort of blockages at country level and also the good practices and how you think we can move forward on this agenda around a common results framework.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Whilst people were talking, I'm thinking I'm too disciplined, you know. I would just say it as it is. From my perspective, after Busan, so we had Paris, Accra, Busan, and after Busan, the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation, it has become kind of a huge conglomerate with very many actors. It's welcomed. It's a huge partnership, and this has its good sides and its lesser good sides. It's, you know, it's diversitas delectat. But if everybody's running around like a chicken, like headless chicken, everywhere and being accountable for his own backyard, it's very difficult to come to joint result frameworks. And which brings me to the main bottlenecks at country level. Of course, as I said before, it's essential to conduct these regular, inclusive and open dialogues at times of, you know, identifying and agreeing on results indicators, and also check them during implementation. But most essentially, we have to be clear about whose results framework are we jointly working towards. And each of us, also civil society active in the countries, have their own responsibility and also rights towards that. This means that there needs to be a solid basis for common interest of the actors at country level that goes beyond these vested interests of a quite fragmented provider and development partner spectrum in the country. It has to be whereby each and all of us keep the eye on the ball, you know, that behind every single metric, there is one person whose life needs to be better. And they don't care where that comes from, you know, who is supporting that. They have a right to human development and human security. We had Human Rights Day 2 days ago. It was also about human security, economic, political, social. So building and nurturing mutual trust as basis for sustained collaboration, it's an essential precondition for addressing what needs to be addressed collectively. So if I'm allowed, 2 recommendations for active and inclusive discussion on results framework at country level, to government institutions, if I'm allowed, esteemed Minister. build on SDG alignment to mainstream SDGs in sector-level result frameworks and across the budget process. The actions create policy anchors for development cooperation alignment to SDG targets and indicators prioritized and monitored by the country. Scale up efforts to expand the coverage and dissemination of disaggregated data. We just saw, and there is the point that comes together. Who is capable and willing to strengthen national government's statistical units? It's not our job as an NGO, but the EU can do it. And yesterday we heard, I thought, the government of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Italy and many bilateral member states, for which thanks. Reshape the local development partners group and other coordination mechanisms to focus collectively on these SDG outcomes prioritized in the new development plan of the country. Make it inclusive to accommodate meaningful participation of civil society therein. Well, I will not start talking about fragility because this afternoon there is a whole session about that, how difficult that is to achieve in fragile and conflict-affected states. And we have also recommendations to our own civil society partners on the ground, and we are doing our best to support them in that. To engage in dialogue with the government in helping to articulate policy dialogue and sector coordination around the SDG targets. Aim to set mutual accountability practices in sector coordination groups around SDG targets. So we are directing this also to the governments, of course. Please be inclusive. Promote sector-level harmonization. And last but not least, empower staff to design result frameworks and set monitoring approaches. Because you are, as CSO, we are a legitimate counterpart when the counterpart sees that we deliver the necessary technical knowledge on that what is discussed. So that is more. And last but not least, you mentioned behavior. What kind of behavioral change? I'm getting tired of repeating. I think that now for the first time, a third time, I'm encouraging everybody to Google World Development Report 2015 of the World Bank, Mind, Society and Behavior. It's putting development on the psychiatrist's couch and saying, okay, so how human behavior is impacting the sustainability of development outcomes. It's the most fascinating VDR and nobody likes it because it's very confronting. So thank you.
Thank you. We all benefit from going on the psychiatrist's couch from time to time. So we all benefit from being on the psychiatrist's couch from time to time, including development. So thank you for reminding us of WDR 2015. So thank you very much. I don't think Minister Gwengwe is actually going to be able to join us. No, I think I see nods over there. So I think he's been tied up in Parliament in Malawi. So I think we can move on. 3 buckets of issues that I think have come out quite clearly from the interventions from our panelists. I think firstly, perhaps at a more technical level or not, there is this issue of agreeing a common set of indicators aligned to, in the case of Sierra Leone, your own national plan, the SDGs and Agenda 2063, but finding that sort of common set of indicators and then in all our support being highly data-driven and evidence-based and supporting national statistical capacity building in order to be able to generate and use that data. I think secondly, what's coming out is this sort of element of dialogue and learning and course correction and adaptation. I think having participated in one of the dialogues myself in Tanzania a few weeks ago, you can't beat getting everyone in the room and having these conversations about the blockages and opportunities around coalescing around a results framework and coordinating better. And then thirdly, perhaps more politically, I think your points, Isabella, around accountability of whom to whom around what is really important, and that element of mutual accountability also is in there. So I think what we'll do now is open up to any comments, questions, or answers, or solutions from the floor. And while I invite someone to take the floor for the first question, I will also look on my phone to see if there's any online questions. But let me invite Jennifer Del Rosario Malonzo from IBON International to give us a comment or question. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Do we have a mic?
Hello.
Yes.
There it is. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Rahul. And thank you to our excellent panelists. So I'm Jennifer Del Rosario Malonzo from IBON International. I am part of the CPDE delegation here in this summit. We have been, I really like Rahul's point at the beginning that results frameworks are not technical, but political. Amid all the challenges that we face today, I think we are affirming that we really need more effective results framework. And this event talks about needing that results to be levers for recovery. Now, for the results to be effective, this lever should be moved by the force of people's needs on the ground and their aspirations to be consistent with the principle of leaving no one behind. The minister earlier also pointed out some challenges in data collection capacity, which we see also in various studies. And one particular study I would cite is that the 2022 DCF survey shows that relatively few countries track progress in untying development cooperation. 2, track the use of development cooperation to combat inequalities. And 3, look at gender disaggregated expenditures and results. So these are just some of the challenges, and I think we really need to work towards improving that. Now, my colleague Isa's point about for whom are these results, and aside from, of course, for what, no? For us, genuine collective efforts and joint results require, of course, the basic role of CSOs and people's organizations on the ground at the country and local levels. CSOs are key actors in moving this lever to the right direction, so to speak. And we play the roles in asserting that results reflect people's needs, and especially in times of crisis. And we are, as development actors, involved in delivering people's needs. So one side of the collective efforts and finding joint results is about really CSO's right to contribute and participate in sustainable development. Earlier, we've also heard about the need for more transparency and accountability. This is especially on the side of duty bearers, which is the other side of the coin of CSOs being allowed to contribute and participate in sustainable development. Now, the basic premise of this is that duty bearers will facilitate people's access to information, as well as the means to contribute to conditions and mechanisms where CSOs and people's organizations could freely articulate and express their views and influence what kinds of development results are needed, such as ones that contribute to realizing people's rights, rural development, as well as sustainable national industrialization. So these premises, how do we make them become actual practice so that we don't just travel back to the old paths that we have been traveling but address actually the systemic inequalities and to move towards sustainable people-centered development. How do we transform the way we work in delivering the actual results that will address real problems experienced, lived by people on the ground? How do we make sure that the effectiveness principles and commitments that we are all affirming here actually contribute to actual improvement of lives at the country level? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. I will let the panelists mull over those words and think about if you would like to respond. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to raise their hand and come to the lectern to pose their own question or comment? Yes, please. And if you could also introduce yourself. And then I have a couple of questions online as well.
Hello, Your Excellency, moderator. Thanks so much for the opportunity. We're talking about...
Could you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Anton Martinov. I'm from Bulgaria, working with CPDE and IBON International. We're talking about the indicator system, about the data collection, but do you have a view how the government's using the indicator system of SDG and the resolution of United Nations that has been approved in General Assembly 71313 on 2017? Because from our set of experience, less than 30% of the governments using this system when they're reporting on voluntary national reviews. Excuse me. Also, what is your opinion about that? We already need to consolidate our indicator systems in one. From other side, they must be open and flexible to give a chance to be added in the future more under indicators and indicators. Because of that we see world has changed for the last 3 years and will be not the same, and maybe this indicator system already can cover the needs of the new world. Of course, now are difficult times, but if we stop to looking forward, we will have troubles after 3 or 4 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Can I ask if there is a Michelle in the room who's posed a question? Sorry, not Michelle, Melanie Shellens. Is there anyone called Melanie Shellens? Would you like to come to the lectern and pose your question as well? And then we'll take the 3 and get some responses from the panelists. Sorry to put you on the spot, Melanie. Yeah, just over there. That's great. Sorry, you have to walk a mile to ask a question.
Thank you so much. We were already used to getting online even if we are in the room. So I'm Melanie Schellens from the Results Service Development Cooperation Administration in Belgium. My question was rather specific in the first place towards Mrs. Jager on the joint results framework for the Team Europe initiatives. There is a lot of investment done by the Commission and by Member States in order to develop a joint monitoring and evaluation framework for these Team Europe initiatives. And my question is, how can we take into account the local country perspective in these joint results framework? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let me turn to you perhaps first, Marietta. So there's 3 sets of issues here, all very different levels. One is around turning rhetoric into reality. The second is around the SDG framework and reporting, and whether you consider the SDGs as an effective sort of compass for your development planning and achievement of results. And then this specific question to you, Marietta, around local sort of embedding the monitoring and results reporting framework in a local level. So Marietta, please.
Yeah, thank you. Let me start with the last question. I was talking about more before, so that is the result framework for Team Europe initiative. And of course, I mean, let me put it rightly. It's all about the alignments. And I believe that the common denominator is Agenda 2030 and its set of SDG indicators. But in our efforts in the EU to enhance the effectiveness of the result frameworks, whether is this like a Global Europe regulation framework or the more Team Europe initiative framework, or you know, the thematic level or otherwise. I mean, what we do in the EU is that we integrate SDGs in our measurement of impact, because we believe that this is the alignment we need, and this serves also to measure the progress we make towards the SDGs directly, because of course we all need to report, and our action should not only be in line with our partner countries' policies, because Deputy Minister will tell you that we have done the local contest and local ownership for a long time, so we all do in the complete partnership with our partner countries in the political dialogue, and priorities are set and the MIPs agreed basically together, but our action should also aim to the multi-annual planning, and of course we all draft that together, and as we are speaking, our colleagues in EU country offices are engaging both with the governments and other partners in agreeing common and agreed set of indicators to be used later for both monitoring and evaluation. So in 2 words, I think that we need the alignment, and we do need to agree on the objectives of our action. And then I believe that the effectiveness and the results will come much quicker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marietta. Deputy Minister Titus Williams, would you like to provide any responses? Perhaps also on the SDGs as a framework, and whether you see consensus within the development partners in Sierra Leone around coalescing around the SDGs, but also thinking perhaps beyond 2030, whether there's a better framework we can think about.
Yes, in the first place, our medium-term national development plan is formulated along the SDGs, and our ministry as a planning and also monitoring ministry for the government of Sierra Leone, we are responsible to ensure that all government-line ministries align their programs along the medium-term national plan that also supports the SDGs. And we also work with the NGOs as well to ensure that their programs contribute to the achievement of the SDGs, which has also been outlined in the medium-term national plan. So these are jointly monitored, like I briefly mentioned in my response. We have set up a platform in collaboration with the UN Resident Coordinator's Office, through also the engagement of the National Statistics Office for the monitoring of the SDGs. We have also done a medium-term evaluation of these plans at ministry level to see the results that have been achieved so far in the implementation. We are learning from the results as well, which will inform the formulation of the next plan. So we are very much deliberate at all levels, together with our partners. We also have a system that we call DPAC, that is Development Partners Committee. We meet quarterly, where we bring in all the development partners, international and national. We bring in line ministries, the reports, what they have achieved so far, They ask questions and also identify the gaps to inform the work of those ministries to ensure that together we are able to collaborate and achieve the SDGs at local level. Thank you.
Okay. And may I ask you if there was one thing you would change around that whole architecture, what might it be?
Well, I think we are learning that to achieve a stronger collaboration, you know, for results, I mean, we need to be very deliberate and also create an enabling environment for developing partners at local level. I think we have learned that, and we are working deliberately to ensure that that one is achieved so that all our partners feel very comfortable and whatever they do contributes to the overall objective at national level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Isabella, would you
Thank
like
you.
to provide any responses, perhaps also to some of the
Yes.
issues raised by your colleagues in IBON?
Thank you. Thank you, Anton, for a great question. Actually, for me, the SDG is still the compass. So I think it would be I would be very worried if we would get rid of the SDG idea as a common compass. And to name the indicators, if you remember the mega exercise of the green one and the gray ones and everything, so you don't want to destroy that. And ideally, you have a national process that is monitoring all the time or regularly the progress on different indicators, and it allows for adaptation to the realities of the day. This is essential. But what I'm more worried about is, to be honest, Raul, I tried to avoid to talk about firefighting again. But it is what I see happening, what we saw, maybe all of us happening over the past years with the crisis, COVID, and also war in Ukraine now, and many other things, is that the joint result frameworks or any kind of result frameworks need resourcing. And I see a huge competition for the resourcing, you know, of the short term, because that is an emergency. And not only the thinking is not there for the longer term, but also the thinking about the resourcing, the long term. And that is something that we have to, I hear sometimes people say that there is no firefighting anymore because this is the new normal. Okay, if it's the new normal, the SDGs still apply as a whole, as you know, you don't want to lose them. The indicators can be followed up and they can be adapted and tweaked and to the realities of the day. But my biggest worry is it happens in our country. For instance, just before I came to Geneva, there was on the news in the Netherlands that due to, of course, that we all had to get our vaccines and COVID had to be under control in the Netherlands, which meant basically all of us had to get it, and now we are collectively immune to the thing. But the doctors, the medical doctors in the country raised the alarm that so many people died, not of COVID, but other kind of illnesses that were not resourced anymore. There were no resources, no doctors to get the treatments and things like that. And that happens multiple times in countries, in partner countries. So my last word on this, Raul, is whether it's possible to strike the balance between the short term and the long term. And as somebody said one of these days, yesterday or the day before, to use the lessons learned during the short term actions. What does make that then it happens something? We can accelerate, we can focus, and we can achieve collective results, and to translate that onto longer term in an inclusive way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and let me thank the three of you sincerely for giving us your time and your intellectual thoughts around this agenda. We really appreciate it. It's been a very interesting session, which I will now have to bring to a close. Let me just say that this joint OECD-EU cooperation, if anyone would like to know any more about what's coming out of these case studies and dialogues, please do approach me. I'm here for the next 2 days. Very happy to discuss those with you. My takeaway is also where I began, that there are trust issues, and I do firmly believe that bringing this sort of results lens can help towards shifting the needle on all of the effectiveness principles, and really thinking much more in terms of scale, coordination, comparative advantage, and really using results as a means as well as an end, in my view. And in that spirit, the DAC has agreed, endorsed, is held accountable against a set of principles, what we call the guiding principles for managing for sustainable development results, which really captures the essence of all of this discussion today. They encourage DAC members to be long-term, adaptive, iterative, aligned, and accountable for delivering results in support of partner countries. So please do also look at those guiding principles. With that, thank you all to all the panelists. Thank you all for being here and engaging, and I wish you a lovely snowy day in Geneva. Bye-bye, thank you.